In this video, I'm going to be talking about the strategic role of business technology in organizations. This is a part of the COM 226 Business Technology Management course at Concordia University John-Molson School of Business with Professor Marc-Andre Leger. So the first thing we want to understand, and I want to make really clear to all of you that this is not a computer science course. This is not management information systems. This is not about technology per se in general. This is about technology used in an organizational environment as a business tool. So this is why this course is called Business Technology Management. It's to get you ready as a future manager to understand how business technology can be useful to your organization as a tool. And so before we get started on the whole course, this presentation intends to give you an idea of what it is that we're going to be talking about in this course during the whole semester. And we're going to come back to these concepts at many different points during this semester. So here today, when you're looking at this video for the first time, some of the things that you're going to hear about are probably going to be new for you. Remember that this course is usually taken by business school students in their first year and sometimes even in their first semester. So it's really important to understand the difference between how organizations are going to be using computers compared to how perhaps you have been using computers as a user, as an individual, as a user of Facebook or smartphones and all these different technologies and tools that you've used as an individual in your education so far or in your private life. But now we're going to start to get you thinking as future managers and how you're going to be using these tools to help your business. So really, we're trying to develop a different mindset and a different way of looking at technology. Get started. We need to understand what it is that we're going to be doing as a business. So this is sort of a simplistic model that's used a lot by startups to try to get a good understanding of what the startup is going to be doing. And so this is a really interesting reference model for us to try to think about the business. So of course, the first thing that you're going to think about is your value proposition. What is it that you do as a business? What is it that you are offering your customers? Whoever these customers are, could be another business, could be consumers, could be the government, could be all kinds of different potential customers that you will have. But you have to offer them something that will be desirable to them, something that they would be interested in. And once you've identified what this actual current or perhaps future proposed value proposition is, you need to think about, so that's the blue circle that we see here. Then you're going to think about the yellow one, about value creation. So this thing that we have, that we're doing, or perhaps that we're thinking about doing in the future, is this technically feasible? Can we acquire, can we invent, can we design technology that is going to enable us to create this value that we're talking about here? And then once we've identified, what it is that we're trying to do, our value proposition, how we're going to create it so that we can technically do it, then the last thing we have to identify, and that's the green circle, can we make money from this? Can we extract value? So is there a difference between the desirability of the value proposition and the cost of creating this value proposition? Is there a difference that means that can we make a profit? Can we get people, perhaps not short term, but medium or long term, can we get people to be willing to give us more money for the value proposition that we have compared to how much it cost us in time and money and resources to be able to make this. So this is sort of the basic idea of this model here, right? What do we want to do? Can we do it? Can we make money from it? Once we've identified that, we need to think about the five forces model. So that's the thing that you're seeing here in the middle here, the five forces. This is one of the many reference models that we're going to be using in this course during the semester. We're going to learn a lot more about this model in the future. For now, you can think of it as the five forces model, something that was thought of many years ago by a Harvard professor called Michael Porter. And there's really two big models from Professor Porter that we're going to be talking about in this course quite a bit. And that's one of them. And this is a model that allows us to think about how our value proposition, how our organization exists in its ecosystem, in its environment. So there's us, there's competitors that are there, and there's certain rivalry between us, right? And then, so we're trying to attract the same customers with a similar or identical or comparable value proposition. And so there's somebody has power, and we're trying to understand this. Is it the suppliers who have all the power? Is it the customers who have all the power? And this is on the right side, the customers, the buyer power of buyers, the bargaining power of buyers. On the left side of the horizontal plane, the supplier's power, the bargaining power of suppliers. So, if I go to see my supplier, can I negotiate with them, or I'm just going to pay for the raw materials that are going into this, creating this value proposition? Can I negotiate with them, or can I just have to pay the price that they're asking for? To give you an idea who has the power here. Same as the customer. If I go to a Tesla dealership and I want to buy a car, can I negotiate the price? If I'm going to the Apple store and I want to buy a MacBook, can I negotiate with Apple the price? Right? Who has the power? And then, of course, on the vertical plane, we have the threat of new entrants. What are the barriers to the arrival of new people in this marketplace? And at the bottom, what are the potential substitute products that people could want to use instead of my product? So, for example, if I'm thinking about the car, like the Tesla, a new entrant in this market, a lot of barriers, very difficult. You need to create factories, dealers, service. You need to get these cars designed. You need to get them tested. You need to get them certified to be able to drive them on the road. This is very, very expensive. So there's a lot of barriers to new entrants in this marketplace. But in an urban setting, substitute products could be public transit, could be bicycles, bike sharing, for example, like we have here in Montreal, the Bixi. This would be a substitute product of the car. Somebody wants to buy a car, they could think of, well, why not? I could just use Uber or use a bike or use the public transit. I don't really need to buy a car. So, substitute products are not necessarily what you would think of as like a different type of car, for example, or a motorcycle instead of a car. But it could be even, more complex things. So once I've identified, what's my value proposition, what's the five forces, what's the ecosystem that I'm in, then I can start thinking about what my strategy is going to be. Now, I do want to caution you that this course is not a course about strategy. So we're not going to be talking about all the different possible strategies. We can, depending on what author you read, you might have 30 or 100 or an infinite number of possible business strategies. For our purpose, in the context of business technology, we're going to focus on the five that are mentioned here, but we're really going to only talk about three kinds of strategies. Cost leadership. And so we want to be the lowest price value proposition in our market. Differentiation, we want people to think that ours is better. So when we're thinking about brands, for example, that's a differentiation strategy. If I want to buy a special brand of computer or a brand of car or a brand of clothing, I'm thinking about a differentiation kind of strategy. And then innovation is another one that, interests most of us. Most business students are really, really excited about, startups and innovation. So we're going to talk about that. We're not really going to talk about the others. But in the book, they're a reference book for this course. You could see those being mentioned. So, but we're going to think about, what is going to be our competitive advantage? What is it that's going to make us better? What is it that we can do that is going to make us better in this? So, if I have a cost leadership strategy, what could I do to make my products cost less? Because if they cost less, then hopefully people would buy more. Or if they cost less, maybe I can sell them at the same price, but I can have more money to invest in research and development to develop future products, or to perhaps even lower the price eventually. If I'm going for a differentiation strategy, what could I do to, so a competitive advantage, what could I do to make my product stand out more? Could I invest maybe more in marketing? Can I invest in design? Can I invest in research and development to have, new versions, new releases of my product that are going to be perceived by customers as being so much better? And then innovation. So how could I, transform an industry, disrupt an industry, radically transform, do something called creative destruction. So transform an industry in a way that, I'm going to come up with something that, nobody else have. So my competitive advantage is going to be relating to, certain new features or capabilities that just didn't exist before. So this notion is absolutely key to this course. And after today, if there's just two words that you're going to remember, competitive advantage are those two words. So I really wanted you to think about the relationship between competitive advantage. So in thinking about my strategy, can business technology contribute to this competitive advantage? And of course, for me, the answer is going to be yes, right? So if you're going to be answering no to this question, you might as well just drop this course right away. It's clear the answer for us is going to be yes. Yes, business technology can help us create a competitive advantage. The whole course focuses on this. But the big question is, okay, so how? How can it do that? And to understand the how, I need to understand what's the strategy that I'm going to have. So once I've so I need to think about this strategy. I need to think about what's going to be the best strategy for the kind of business that I'm going to be in, considering my value proposition, considering the environment that I'm in. Now, of course, if this were an MBA course, we'd be talking about strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat. We'd be doing a SWOT analysis to try to help us. We'd also be doing a PESTEL, so political, economic, social, technological, environmental, legal analysis to help us to choose our strategy. Now, we're not going to do that here, but since I know probably a whole bunch of you are going to be at least thinking about doing an MBA after you finish your BCom, I think it's a good idea that that there is this, and that's something that we would normally, in a real business setting, we definitely would be thinking about. But we're not going to be doing it here. But we're going to focus on, thinking about, okay, what's going to be the best strategy that we've selected. Think about, okay, now how can we do this? How can we create this value, right? Remember the VC, the orange circle I was talking about in my first slide about the value proposition. So so now we need to create this value. So how can we do that? And again, if this were an MBA course, we'd be doing something called the business model canvas. That's the diagram that you see at the bottom right-hand corner here, which is a very useful tool. But again, here, we're not going to do it. We're not going to be using it. But if some of you are interested in startups and the startup ecosystem, we have a startup incubator here at this school, so you can go and take a look. You should probably, actually, I highly recommend that you learn as much as you can while you're here at university about startups and the startup ecosystem. And you're going to see this business model canvas being used there. So we're not going to talk about that here. But we are going to talk about the value chain. That's another reference model that we'll be using quite a bit in this course. Again, by Professor Porter from Harvard. It's not a very recent model. It's a theoretical model, but it's going to be a very useful tool for us to try to understand what are the basic building blocks of creating a business. So whatever we want to do as a value proposition, a product or a service, we're going to think about, okay, in order to do this, these are the pieces of the puzzle that we need to put in place. So we need, some primary activities, so value creation activities, and then some support activities to support these value creating activities. Don't worry too much. Again, like I said at the beginning of this presentation, if you don't understand everything that we're talking about here, we are going to come back in a lot more detail in all of these things. Particularly, the value chain is something that we're going to be talking about in a few weeks. And so hopefully by the end of the semester, this will all make sense to you. Based on this value chain that we're going to use to create our product or service, the part that we're going to be talking about in this course is the technology part, so the business technology. Understanding that we're going to look at business technology as being made out of a certain number of basic components. Obviously, hardware and software are two important ones, but there's also the data. There's the networking aspect of it, so things being interconnected. There's the individuals. And then what we see in the middle here, the input, process, output, that's business processes. These are the things that we do as a business. Now, in order to do these things that we do as a business, we're going to use hardware and software and databases and people and network. We're going to use the business technology, the information system components. And so that part of the support activities, the technology development part, that is going to be our focus here, right? Of what we're. So trying to put this all together, right? What we're going to be doing, because remember the other part that I haven't talked about really so far is the value extraction. We need to be able to make money from all of this. And technology, business technology costs a lot of money. Human resources, we have to pay people, cost a lot of money. We have a value proposition, and this exists within a certain strategy that we're doing. So how can we align the technology to the strategy? Right? How can we choose what technologies that will allow us to be efficient and increase our efficiency to optimize our competitive advantage? Keeping in mind that efficiency is the ratio to inputs and outputs. So if I want to increase my efficiency, I want to be able to do more with less, right? Or I want to use less resources to be able to do the same thing. I'm increasing my efficiency. So I'm going to be doing better. And when I'm increasing my efficiency, I'm creating or I'm improving my competitive advantage. So if I have a low cost strategy, a cost leader strategy, maybe this will allow me to lower my cost. Or if it's a differentiation strategy, maybe this will allow me to be perceived by potential customers as being a better product. And here, keep in mind this word that I mentioned, perceived, right? It's all about perception. If I have a differentiation strategy, if customers perceive my product as being better, then I'm increasing my differentiation. I'm increasing my competitive advantage. And then the other thing that I need to think about, so I'm going to think about the cost, obviously, if I want to extract value. Then I need to think also about the risks. What are the potential things that could go wrong? And because if I'm taking a risk, if I'm seizing an opportunity, there's definitely going to be risk associated with this opportunity. We can't avoid risk, but what we want to avoid is unacceptable risks. So as being in business, we're going to take some risks, and perhaps our strategy is going to work. But can we do this in a smart way so that the risks that are there, we have a strategy on how we can address these risks, how we can be prepared to handle these risks if something actually materializes. So in a nutshell, in one slide, this is what this course is about. So at the beginning of the semester, when you're watching this video for the first time, there's probably a lot of things here that you don't really understand. And if by the end of the semester, you understand everything here and you understand how this is all coherent, how this all makes sense as a coherent unit, then we've been successful. You have the competencies that I'm trying to give you as part of this course. Thank you.